Welcome back to Last Week I Watched. I'm Mark, and I watch TV shows and movies and review them to help you decide whether or not there's something that you might be interested in watching. So this week I watched The Harder They Fall, Lower Decks, Red Dot, Hypnotic, Cowboy Bebop, and Midnight Mass. So let's talk about them. First up was The Harder They Fall. It's a movie from 2021 starring Idris Elba, Jonathan Majors, Zazie Beetz. It was showing on Netflix. So it's about an outlaw. When he discovers that an enemy is being released from prison, he reunites with his gang to seek revenge. It's a Western thriller. I do enjoy a good Western, and while the story isn't anything super complex, it's very much a basic revenge tale. It's well acted with some really good action sequences and plenty of style. In fact, you could almost say it's got more style than anything else. It feels like it's heavily influenced by Tarantino in some ways, where there's sort of snappy dialogue and sort of modern music and shots of, you know, people riding through in slow motion and looking cool and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's an interesting fusion of contemporary type movie styles and a Western. I have to say it's really great to see a Western representing African Americans for a change. The cast is largely not white, and and that's quite refreshing for a change, especially in that setting when a lot of Westerns have been predominantly white often. So it was good to see something a bit different in that regard. I'd probably like to have seen some more going on the story, and I think as such it could probably have benefited from some tighter editing. Sometimes there were sequences that did go on a little bit long, and they didn't necessarily feel like they hugely benefited the story. Again, I think it's just balancing the aforementioned style with the needs of the story. But overall, it's pretty good. It's a very slickly made film. It's fun, and I'd recommend giving it a look. Check it out. Alright, next up was Lower Decks. It's an animated TV series from 2020 starring Tawny Newsome, Jack Quaid, and Noah Wells. It's showing on Prime. So this is a Star Trek animated series. It's probably more adult, more tongue-in-cheek, I guess, than your regular sort of Star Trek. It's following one of the B-grade ships, the USS Cerritos, and they often do the follow-on duties after the main crews and ships have come through. So, you know, the Enterprise might come through, do a first contact, and these guys deal with sort of the paperwork and the donkey work that comes afterwards. So it's kind of interesting. Rather than following the sort of bridge crew like most of the series do, this follows the people down below decks that do all the sort of crap work, I guess. The janitorial type things. It's very loosely serialized. There is sort of some through threads, but generally each week it's a different story. I guess it's similar to, or probably inspired by, the Lower Decks episode from season 7 of Star Trek: The Next Generation in '94. It's a lot of fun to see a crew that doesn't get up to the glamorous adventures. These guys really enjoy their niche below decks, slacking off and getting into mischief and getting up to things that they don't necessarily want the bridge crew noticing. And sometimes they do actually cause some of the chaos. But yeah, it's good fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously. I guess it's a little bit like what's the Orville, the Star Trek-like series, which is also more comedic and not taking itself so seriously. So it's good fun. I'd check it out. It's interesting that they have stuck much more to the premise of following the below decks crew rather than Discovery, which I think started off with that intent that Michael Burnham was going to be down below decks and we wouldn't be following the main crew. But Michael Burnham's been made into captain now, at least 2 or 3 times, I think. So they pretty quickly ejected that premise out the window, and sort of fell back into the usual pattern. So this is nice to see this animated series. It's a bit different, it's a bit fresh. The voice cast do a really great job, the animation's really great. There's plenty of references to other characters and stories from the main show sprinkled throughout, so it rewards you if you're a Star Trek fan, which is fun. It's a good show. I'd recommend you check it out if you're a Trekker or if you're just into sci-fi and animation. It's worth a laugh. Okay, next up was Red Dot. It's a film from 2021. It stars Nana Blondell, Johannes Kuhnke, Anastasio Soulis. It's a Swedish film, so apologies if I mangled your name. I do not speak Swedish. It's showing on Netflix. So it's about a couple. Naja becomes pregnant, and but their relationship's on the skids, and so they make an attempt to rekindle their relationship by travelling away for the weekend to the north of Sweden for a hiking trip. And camping out under the Aurora Borealis. But soon their romantic trip turns into a nightmare. This is a Swedish thriller. You probably want to watch it with the original audio and subtitles. The couple are terrorized by a mysterious shooter. Who is doing it? Is it the people that they have pissed off earlier on with their attitude and some of their behaviours? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. As the story unwinds, it's clear that their relationship issues stem from something that's happened in their past, and this has been slowly poisoning their relationship. And the motives of the shooter become something much more than a bit of road rage or bad attitude, and are actually being driven by full-on revenge. If you want to check it out, go and watch it now. I'm going to talk about the ending a little bit, so spoilers. Hit pause and go watch it now if you want to. The twist ending makes a lot of sense when you consider the couple's behaviour during the story as things gradually unwind. It kind of destroys any sympathy you might have felt for the couple earlier on. And although I don't know that revenge is the moral high ground you should be taking, I do understand the shooter's position and why they've chosen to do what they do. It was a surprising twist. It was better than I expected, actually. It was quite a well thought out story, well acted, and has some beautiful scenery shots. I appreciated the story played games with your expectations and that the twist wasn't clearly telegraphed or given away earlier on. It's left to unfold naturally throughout the course of the film. I highly recommend checking it out. Okay, next film was Hypnotic. It was from 2021, starring Kate Siegel, Dooley Hill, Jason O'Mara, and it's on Netflix. A young woman, she seeks some self-improvement. She needs some help with some issues she's having, so she gets introduced to a renowned hypnotherapist who claims that he will help cure her issues. But after a handful of intense sessions, she discovers unexpected and deadly consequences. The thriller was actually pretty good. It's an interesting twist or idea with a killer using hypnotherapy as a tool to control and dispatch with people once he's finished with them. It's quite an interesting twist on a psychopath. I know they're often portrayed as being highly intelligent, but I don't think I've ever seen one that's been concerned with helping people supposedly with their mental health issues, so that was an interesting twist. I do wonder how viable it would be in real life, as my understanding of hypnotherapy is you can't ever make someone do something that they really wouldn't want to do. So I'm curious as to how realistic some of the mental suggestions would actually be, but it doesn't stop me from enjoying the film. It's not a serious suspension of disbelief required. Once again though, the victims do make some silly choices, but I guess in the context of the film it just serves to show how smart the killer is. They do eventually outsmart him, which was and the way they do so is clever, and sort of ultimately took advantage of his own overconfidence in his abilities. The film's well shot and acted, but I have to say the therapist is so creepy and off from the outset that I did wonder why anyone would go to see him in the first place. Perhaps that's just my mistrustful nature, but I don't think that I would have gone to this person as a therapist. It's a reasonably good thriller, but sometimes it does feel a little like it's a made-for-TV level thriller, but I'd still say it's definitely the A standard of that even, so it's worth watching if you're looking for something to just chill out and enjoy. Okay, the next show I watched was Cowboy Bebop. It's from 2021, starring John Cho, Mustafa Shakir, and Daniela Pineda, showing on Netflix. So this is an adaptation of an anime series. I haven't watched the anime series personally, but it concerns following a crew of bounty hunters who chase down the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. They've all got their own backstories, and throughout the season, it kind of unwinds where they come from and what's going on with them. It's based on a Japanese anime from 1998. The original anime ran for 26 episodes, and it's set in the year 2071. So there's an interesting mix of spaceships and robots and, general sort of weirdness and technology and things like that, mixed in with sort of, regular everyday type stuff and I guess different planets and settlements and things. One good thing that a lot of people have praised was that the original anime had a heavy focus on the sort of jazz music that's in it, and original series composer Yoko Kanno returned to score the series, so I guess that's pretty good. So even though I'm not familiar with the anime, I was familiar that it was an anime at least, but I've often found it hard to get into anime. Some of the stories and things are so unusual as to be impenetrable, I guess, to someone who's not used to that sort of thing. But I was interested to check out the adaptation to see whether the live action style would make it easier for me to get into. And I have to say, I did actually quite enjoy it, enough that I binged it in a couple of installments, and I did actually go and watch some of the original anime afterwards. And I have to say, I'm aware that people were upset that it was adapted and are complaining about it, but I really don't quite understand where that's coming from, because the live action show is pretty much the same as the anime, other than I guess there's a more constant through line of the character of Vicious, but it certainly in some cases followed the animated stories almost shot for shot, really, and they didn't make a lot of changes. There were a couple of small additions, but certainly nothing that I got upset about it. But they've still kept the whole noir, futuristic detective bounty hunter type thing. They're pursuing various bounties. They're still trying to keep their ship going. There's still a bunch of shits to each other sometimes, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good, and yeah, it did actually help me to then appreciate the anime a little bit. I don't know what was different about it, but yeah, I just found it easier to get into, I guess, and it moves along quite well as well. I guess I found with the anime sometimes there was some scenes that went on a little bit long, perhaps, but I guess that was one difference I noticed. But yeah, I don't really see what the problem is. I think if you'd be a fan, you should really be happy to get a live adaptation. I think they did a really good job of it. They've obviously loved the material. There was a lot of care and attention taken to it. I think the casting choices were good for it. Maybe it's just that they have a real personal attachment to the original anime, and that's okay. I just think that instead of being so hard on it, they should have thought of it as another gateway to bring people into enjoying Cowboy Bebop. So, as I was going to go and film this, I found out yesterday, I think it was, that they've actually cancelled it now and it won't be getting a second season, which was super disappointing, because I was genuinely interested to see where it would go. And I guess, having got a lot of the original storylines out of the way, I understand there's probably still more, but I would have been interested to see if they would then start to create more original type stuff and new content set in that universe. And I believe the original creators and things had input into it as well, so I would have been curious to see where it would have gone. And I worry that people's complaining and negativity has now deprived them of the opportunity to get some more content in this universe, so that's a bit sad. I have to say, one other thing I did also really enjoy was the fact that I realised watching it that some of the locations looked familiar, and then when I realised it was shot in New Zealand, that was sort of an added dimension of enjoyment for me, because where it was actually shot was in an area close to where I used to work, so I was actually familiar with some of the areas, some of the locations, so it became a bit fun for me to try and figure out where some of those locations were. So that was some extra bonus, I guess, as well. But yeah, by and large I thought the characters did a great job. I enjoyed the actors. I do have to say, one guy that I found a bit unusual was Vicious. Every time he came on, it kind of jolted me out of the reality a little bit, because he looks like a tall version of Farquaad from Shrek, if you can see what I mean. I don't know if it's the fact that I'm guessing he's probably a dark-haired person and they've put him in a bleached blonde wig, so he just seems not quite right, but facially he does look quite similar to Farquaad. So comment below if you agree, or now you can see it and I've ruined it for you, in which case I'm very sorry. But that was a bit strange. Yeah, but anyway, disappointed. I was hoping there'd be a second season. I think the first season was good. Please go and check it out. Maybe Netflix will reconsider and give it another go. I personally think they pulled the pin on it too fast. It's actually quite good, and I think it's unfortunate maybe that just perhaps people's biases have unfortunately killed it. Alright, the next one was Midnight Mass. It's another series. It's from 2021, starring Kate Siegel again, Zach Gilford, Kristen Lemon, and it was showing on Netflix. So this one's about an isolated island community that starts experiencing miraculous events when their new priest arrives. These later transition to frightening omens, and things sort of go downhill from there. There's, I think, 7 episodes in this mini-series. The main character we follow into it is Riley Flynn. He's had a drink driving accident and subsequent 4 years imprisonment, and he's carrying quite a bit of guilt from his addictions, having killed a young woman. He returns to his family in the small island community, so I guess he's the outsider, our view into this community. And when a new priest arrives on the island, and miracles start to happen, this obviously quickly builds the religious fervour, but obviously there may be a price to pay. This is very similar to a Stephen King novel. In fact, you could probably say it's a Stephen King novel he didn't write, but it's similar in its portrayal of small town life, hidden secrets, and sinister goings on. And I actually found it really good. So I'd suggest you check it out, but I do want to chalk some spoilers here for a second. So if you're interested in it and you don't want to know anything going into it, go and watch it now. Otherwise, spoilers. Okay, so I have to say I found it a really original idea for a vampire story. Although it seemed a bit strange that no character ever mentions vampires in the entire run of the story. Even as things unfold and are revealed, and stuff's happening with blood, and people are healing and getting strange cravings, you'd think that people would be aware enough of vampires to maybe say the V word, but they never do. Perhaps these people are a bit sheltered and uneducated. In Hicksville, maybe, I don't know. But I'd be really surprised if somebody hasn't heard of vampires in this world. The religious elements were in some ways more creepy to me than the creature. The fact that they would assume that a scary winged creature that drinks blood is an angel sent to bring miracles really hammers home how deeply indoctrinated these people are in their faith. Faith is one thing, but blind belief in the face of evidence is something quite different. And I do find religion scary in the fervour it brings out in some people. To do wrong or harm to other people when they believe that some imaginary figure has given them permission to do so. And I don't agree with that. Especially the Old Testament type stuff too, where the text is so open to interpretation, you can pretty much make it mean anything you want to justify. And there's certainly plenty of examples in this. There's one character in particular who is not a nice person, and I kudos to the show. They do actually call her out on that when one of the characters tells her that she's really not a nice person, even though she tries to couch it in her being a deeply religious and caring person. But she's not a nice person, and she really just uses it to dominate and bully people into getting what she wants, and that's disturbing to me. The other thing was the themes of addiction that run through this as well was interesting to me. So Riley is trying to manage his addiction to alcohol. He's killed someone, it's ruined his life and the lives of people around him, and he's really crippled by the guilt. But then he's slowly being drawn in by this priest and his followers that have an addiction to religion. And I guess once that spirals out to them drinking blood, albeit concealed in the sacramental wine, the blood brings pain and suffering and terrible urges and the drive to obtain more blood. And so they gradually, as they move into their addiction, it's much the same as addicts with drug or alcohol, in that they've really got some issues if they can't get what they need. I think the story has some interesting comments to make. It takes its time getting to know the various people on the island, and as you slowly see them lured to their demise, it has some impact, because you do actually start to care about people, and you do want various people to survive, and it's gutting if they don't. So I'm glad it was shot as a miniseries. I think it gives you enough room to breathe in a story like this, and that's important. It really amplifies how crushing it is and I guess as you're watching it too, you know what's going on, you're steps ahead of them, so it's frustrating too when you know that they're being led into darkness and not salvation. I think it's important to remember in the world that nothing is free and everything has a price, and in this case miracles come with a price tag attached. I'd recommend checking it out. It's worth your time. It definitely brings some new ideas and elements to the genre, and it's really good. Give it a watch. So those are my suggestions for this week. As usual, they're just my opinions. If you have any thoughts, leave some comments below. Feel free to leave any suggestions for things that I should watch down there as well. I'm happy to check out what you've got, and I'm happy to chat with you about these things. Just leave some comments below. As always, click on the like and subscribe if you found the video to be helpful. It helps me build the channel and helps me to notify you when the next set of reviews comes out. Okay, so go and enjoy some movies and some TV, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Bye now.